Welcome to the Rock Your Comeback podcast. I'm Nichole Eaton, author of the books Rock Your Soul and Rock Your Comeback, as well as an intuitive therapist, and I'm here to remind you of your power. This podcast focuses on mindset and inviting the universe in to create a life that feels so good, so aligned, and so authentic. I hope you're ready. Hey guys, welcome back to the Rock Your Comeback podcast. I'm your host, Nichole Eaton, and today I have a very special guest, Paul Blanchard. He is the founder of Whole Body Mindset. He's a coach and speaker, and I am really particular about who I invite onto my podcast. I have a lot of applications, but I don't usually go out seeking people, but I have to tell you that this man's TikTok rolled across my algorithm, and I was like, yes, you. So welcome, Paul. I'm super excited to have you.
Thank you. Giving me goosebumps right off the bat. I appreciate that.
I just felt pulled into this. And I usually start out with a different question, but I just have to talk about what this TikTok was. You were talking about how the more things we have figured out, the more there is to figure out. And I was just thinking about, wow, that is such a little cycle that we get ourselves into. And I want to hear your take on that.
So a lot of this comes from how much of our struggle and pain is manufactured from destination and linear-based thinking. Our thinker brain is an unbelievable companion. We just have learned in society to lean on it way too much. One of my favorite quotes that I still haven't been able to figure out the origin of is the brain is a phenomenal traveling companion, but was never meant to be in charge. And so it operates in a very linear fashion. It also has a massive pharmacy that loves to release dopamine and serotonin and adrenaline, all these different things to say, hey, you're on track. You're on a linear track. You're checking off the right boxes. And yet so much of what our soul craves is not linear. It is not a checked box. It is not a state of completion. It is an experience of a never-ending process of expansion. And so the more we can invite not to do battle with the linear, it has its place, has its benefit as framework and guardrails and reference points, but to be able to learn to trust a little bit more the process that, like, for example, healing, I know is a big deal for both of us, that's not a destination. We don't go inside to find the inventory of what needs to be healed and try to check all those boxes. We go in and find a little piece of that inventory to learn a process, very much like the digestive system. You don't go, here's the inventory of all the things I need to eat before I die to complete my life. No, you develop a sensitivity to the digestive process and what actually nourishes me. And that's similar to every other system that our soul craves, is to not exclude the linear, but to learn to trust the infinite and the expansive just a little bit more.
That was so well worded. I'm trying to decide how I want to take that apart, because it was so good. And it's so funny because every time I sit with somebody and they're like, I'm healed now, I'm like, you're going to get your ass handed to you so fast. Like, you don't tempt the universe in that way. But absolutely, I don't believe healing is linear. And I think it's a messy thought to tie yourself into the belief that it has a beginning and end point. I think there's always moments in time where we feel relief and we feel better and we manage our life or our symptoms in a way that we've never done. And I think that's how we can better manage and measure healing. But one of the things that you said that I love is that your brain is a massive pharmacy. I have never thought about it like that. Can you elaborate on that just a little bit more?
Sure. So in the concept of the whole body mindset, it is that mindset is a set of minds, like a furniture set or a tool set. It's not just the cognitive elements. It's not just the intellect. That's only one of the minds that we call the thinker mind. Then we've got the heart mind. That's the mammalian aspect of our existence. And then we've got the gut mind, which is the reptilian aspect of our existence. And so when we start processing things in terms of the thinker mind, it wants to do things that aren't its job. It wants to feel what the heart mind was designed to feel. It wants to protect the way the gut mind was built to protect, but that's not its job. And somehow in the cosmos's ever an expansive sense of humor, it gave it a pharmacy to try and imitate it. It gave it an opportunity to go, oh, we're feeling anger, which is not a feeling, it's a story, it's a label. And what are the right concoction of chemicals we could release to designate, to attach to anger? And then anger becomes a very linear, very singular kind of emotion, rather than, okay, here's the label I've called anger, which is on this jar of things that I can't explain. I can only sense and feel. And so it's interesting to see that the chemicals, the pharmacy that it's got, are usually its job to try and imitate what the body was meant to actually process and feel, which in modern science today, we found the thinker brain, regardless of its ability to control that pharmacy, actually receives far more information than it sends out. So when we're thinking about something, it's not meant to be an output command to the body. It's actually meant to be a student to what the body understands, because one of the defining differences between probably what most people's oppositions are is the thinker mind and the gut mind, which is really challenging because the gut mind is the master system. You cannot override the gut mind. No matter your affirmations, no matter your personal development, no matter your spiritual strength, the gut mind hijacks the system and it's over until it lets go. There's no bypassing that reptilian limbic system, that fight or flight response that we've been built into for hundreds of thousands of years. And so the opportunity to be able to step back from that and realize, okay, there are things that my body is meant to process, just like it has my heart beating, it has my digestive system working, that the thinker brain, it can't do because it's not designed to be present. The thinker brain thrives on evaluating the past and projecting the future. It's more the heart mind and the gut mind that can only be present. And so that's one of the gifts they bring in collaboration with the thinker mind, not in opposition, but in alignment. And so when the thinker mind can be like, yeah, I'm badass. I provide amazing gifts that have separated human beings from the rest of the animal kingdom, but let's see if I can dance with the other minds so that I don't sacrifice the internal technological advancement of my cognition for the very animal characteristics, the human animal characteristics of being able to be present. Because Nichole, when's the last time you saw an animal that you needed to remind to be present? Like it's all they can be.
Right.
That collaboration, that pharmacy can sometimes get in the way because we think we're actually feeling what's in our body, not the woo-woo energy, the actual atomic energy that has come from all the different things we've experienced in our life, some of which has been discharged, some of which has been stuffed down, and some of which is flowing, that requires all three minds to feel. And that pharmacy, when it's in alignment, will allow that process to be honored, to be witnessed. But for those of us who are thinker mind dominant, that pharmacy has been hijacked to imitate the healing process, to imitate sensation and healing and forgiveness and connection.
Oh, Paul, this is so good. So I want to break this down for people listening, right? So our thinker mind, assessing the past and present. Our gut mind is really that survival mode. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
And where does the heart mind fit in with all of this?
So interestingly, we learned this in utero. The heart is formed first as a human being, and then it lends that same tissue, that same molecular construct to the brain to be formed and to the gut to be formed. So it's really the piece that brings it all together. Like if we were a galaxy, that would be what it's all spinning around, is the heart mind. But it's also not meant to be the dominant one either. None of the three were meant to be on its own. They all bring really beautiful characteristics. The heart mind on its own, the thinker mind on its own, the heart mind on its own, all over the place. But when they get to dance together and then honor the sensation of the survival mind, honor the process of keeping us safe, which when we really get down to it means keeping us predictable. And so many of us are moving too fast for transformation because you can only move as fast as your gut mind will allow. And if you've got a lot of atomic traumatic energy trapped in the gut mind, you've got to move even slower, where it almost even feels like you're going backwards, not because you actually are, but because it feels like everyone else is moving so fast. We were just talking about retrogrades a little bit, which is not the Earth moving backwards, but because because we're passing a planet slower or faster, it feels like we are. And so that gravitational energy just creates illusions in how we're experiencing the natural cycles of life. Same thing happens in ourselves when we either try to rush the gut mind or try to slow it down versus find the alignment of the dance.
I've never heard that before, that many of us are trying to move too fast for transformation. Like I want to like sit with that for a moment, because I think I had a great conversation with my friend yesterday, and we were talking about being in Europe this summer and how slow their living is and how nice it feels. And it's almost like when you come back to the US, it's like this pressurized energy of doing more, being more, feeling more. Like it's an energetic feeling of, even if my thinker mind is in Europe and Italy still, and I am basking in the Mediterranean, that I feel this pressure around me to go faster than I'm currently going, if that makes sense.
It's very similar to the G forces you experience in a fighter plane. Like the faster you go than you're used to, the more compression, the more energy is working against you. And it becomes harder just to breathe, which is one of the things that naturally connects us to our personal rhythm, which has a harmonization with the rhythm of the earth and the universe. And I heard a story a year ago speaking at an event, and someone came up to me afterwards and said, hey, when you talked about slowing down, and I think one of the things that is not being talked about is to slow down slowly. You know, we tend to have this pull to go faster and to leverage our bodies rather than connect with our bodies to see the extremes we can push them to. You know, thousands of years ago, at least in the hunter-gatherer dynamic, you know, hunters would do extraordinary things in going out and hunting an animal 10 times bigger than it to be able to feed their tribe, for example. And the brain adapted to this by filtering out stuff that didn't allow us to accomplish that. So when you're hunting, you wouldn't notice a stubbed toe because you're just trying not to get trampled by this beast and figure out how to take it down. And it feels like, Nichole, today, especially in our industry in the last decade or more, it's become about, can you be a hunter every day, all day? But if we go back to where we learned that, a hunter would hunt maybe once, twice a week. And guess what they'd do the rest of the time? They'd rest, they'd dance, they'd sing, they'd prepare the food, they'd connect with their family. And yes, of course, get prepared for the next hunt, but it wasn't hunt, 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 hunt. It was hunt, be able to hunt, and then rest, recover, and connect. And I think that's a piece that we're massively missing today in that process. And that's causing us to filter out things that are unnecessary to be filtered out so that we can stay in the rhythm. Because what allows us to think that we can actually put the brakes on the natural rhythm of the universe, which usually causes depression, or try to get the earth to rotate faster than it does, which usually causes anxiety. And I'm overgeneralizing. There are particular chemical imbalances I am ultra sensitive to, understanding the science of all those things and the tools, even at times the pharmaceuticals to assist in that. But in an oversimplified, trying to slow things down too much, depression, trying to speed things up too much, anxiety, we miss the opportunity to connect to the rhythm. And the story I heard, coming full circle, my apologies, was about these missionaries that went to Africa and they hired these locals to be their porters, to carry their stuff. And they had kind of like a 1-week agenda of the villages they would visit and the land they wanted to cover. The first day, they were not on track. They were moving so slow. So that night, the missionaries got together and were like, we're leaders. We can inspire people. Let's inspire these locals to go faster. So they had a conversation with them. They connected with them. And the next day, like a rocket ship. Like, this is amazing. This is incredible. The missionaries are just thrilled. They're like, we're going to totally meet our schedule. This is awesome. Then they wake up the next morning. Everyone's fast asleep. Camp isn't being broken down. Breakfast isn't being prepared. Missionaries come to the locals. They're like, hey, what's going on? Like, what do you mean? Yesterday we were moving so fast. It was so amazing. Like, yeah, we did. Well, what's going on? We're letting our souls catch up. I've never forgotten that. Just a mythological way of actually describing what we now know about the deeper nervous systems and dysregulations that get created from losing our natural rhythm that comes from pressure you're talking about, that is, you just feel it everywhere. And when we're connected to the explicit elements of evaluating ourselves, what we accomplish, our comparative brain, then we are victims to that pressure rather than being able to witness it and be an example of a different way of living.
And there's so much power to knowing yourself and how you work best. And I don't know if you mess with human design much, but I swear by it, love it. There's a couple of designs in human design that are basically built to rest more than they're built to go. There are definitely ones that are built to go, and you've met those people who are busy and constantly, you know, my dad bops hops around to project. And I don't know who he would be without it, to be honest. Like that just resonates for him. But me, I was telling you earlier, I needed to take yesterday off. I canceled the second half of my meetings for the day and I just laid around and existed. And it was the best thing. And today I woke up and I was like, let's go. I'm back. I have all this energy. And so for me, I have to really monitor myself when it comes to work and hustle culture, to not fall victim to feeling like I need to be doing more and to really tune into myself to see what I'm aligned with for the day. And that's been a struggle because there's so many people telling you in 95 different directions, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, or a mom or not, or whatever the case might be in your roles in your life. There's that societal pressure that's coming in from every angle, telling you how to do things, how much you should be doing. And it's exhausting for people to try to keep up.
So as a manifesting generator, when I had my human design debriefed, I was told, hey, the universe knows where you live. So like stay home a little more. Like it's like it keeps delivering packages I need to sign for, but I'm not home to sign for it because of workaholism and other things that have been instilled in me over the years are super important. Nichole, here's the best part is sometimes we listen to people and we're like, wow, they're 80% recover and receive and 20% go out and make it happen. But I'm the other side of the scale. And we unfairly, and for want of a better term, unjustly convince ourselves I need to get to their ratio. When in fact, if you're naturally wired this way, and this is part of the slowing down slowly kind of element, if you went from, and we're using arbitrary ratios here, 80-20 to 75-25, you would feel massively different. I mean, you think about how our brains are wired for one little thing to go wrong, and we typically feel like everything is going wrong. We actually have the ability to take advantage of that the other direction. We just don't notice it as easily, that one thing could go right, and we're tuned in, and it feels like everything is going right. We just do that less intentionally than we do it the other direction, because that just seems to be safer to trust destruction more than opportunity, because we don't want to trust opportunity and then have it pulled out from under us when we could have just done that ourselves and it wouldn't have hurt as much. That's part of our wiring in preventing something being taken away, which robs us of actually fully experiencing it.
I have to tell you how full circle this is. This conversation with my friend yesterday is one of the things that we had settled on of like, how do we maintain this alignment with this slower version of what we're craving right now? And one of the things that we had discussed was, how are we creating space for more God moments, for more universe moments, for more receiving rather than working? And so that was at the top of my list today when I woke up, is like, how do I create more space in my day to be in a receiving mode, to be in a mode of gratitude, to be in alignment with my purpose? And so I love this conversation. I'm obsessed with this conversation because I think more people need to hear just a permission slip that it's okay to slow down. And not only is it okay, but damn, it's really good for you to slow down. It's good for your healing. It's good for your soul. It's good for all of these parts of you and all of these different types of brains that you have in your body. I'm curious for you. This is called Rock Your Comeback. What is a time in your life where maybe you weren't in alignment or were really outside of who you are in this current space and time?
So a few years back, I was in a place that the 18-year-old me would never have believed on paper in terms of income and opportunity, and it was a really interesting place because my bank account was screaming, "You made it!" Like, this is incredible. This is amazing. The number of people that I was working with and that were, just, you helped me so much, and the testimonials coming, it was just like, wow, this is it. I made it. Like, this is incredible. But then when I got still, if I wasn't doing it, it did not feel good. It did not feel good to just be. And I can't recall all the specific things that came together for me to do this. But I realized, and this is kind of in retrospect, as a lot of our greatest discoveries tend to be, I had built this forge that had created some of the most amazing weapons and tools that I had used in my career and my life. But I never stopped to ask what was actually fueling the furnace. What was actually providing the fuel for the fire? I was just seeing seeing the tools and the weapons and the different things I was able to use practically and strategically and to help other people and myself. And so why question it until I realized like, wow, if I want to relax, I need to do relaxation. Like I need to be doing something to relax, watching something. I need to be listening to something. If I'm going to get fulfillment from the work that I do, I've got to be in it and I've got to be busy in it and all these different things. And there was this, what I've found out since is called liminal space. Liminal space is in between the doing. And for most human beings, liminal space can be summarized in terms of what it feels like for a lot of our busy, that pressure that you talked about in Western society feels like there's a broken pipe that's spraying you in the face. You have the wrench to fix it. And liminal space feels like you just sit there. And I was like, wow, this doesn't feel good. I'm really curious about that. And that led me to walk into the fire of that furnace, of that forge, and start to inspect what was actually fueling that. And what I found was surprising. The trauma, the wounds, the overcompensation, the things you would never want to say out loud to anyone, not because they are the whole truth, but they are some of the logs on the fire. And that was, honestly, Nichole, it was devastating. It was absolutely devastating. We cry for freedom. And it's like standing on top. I was just having this conversation with my personal coach, my personal mentor yesterday. When we stand on top of the Grand Canyon and we can see the other rim and we go, I want to be there. And then we take the first step down into the canyon and go, no, I don't want to go down there. I want to get over there. And so the patience, the only way to get through that is slowly. There's no powering through that. It's more powerful than you are. There's no amount of pain, resilience, and toughness that can get you through the depths of your own soul. And it's interesting for those of us who have gotten to some version of the other side of the canyon, and then there's an infinite number beyond that.
Much more, yeah.
There's a part of us, this was kind of the irony of the conversation, that want to turn around and see people on the other rim and go, stay there. I'm not sure, it's like thinking about where they are, like, so glad I got here, but I'm not sure you want to actually do this. Like, that's a very real feeling, because you reach what you thought were your limits over and over and over and over again. And if you're just asking for those to keep coming, you're going to get washed right back up to where you started. It's the only way you can survive, to dissociate, to become as addicted to the tools that people claim heal, and the tools that make me whole, whether that's breath work or plant medicine or whatever it might be, which are amazing tools, but they're just as vulnerable to being leveraged for bypass and self-abandonment as any drug is, as any substance is. So I just found that journey, any comeback, as you will, that isn't partnered in stillness, in just being with you without doing anything, without even a mantra or focusing on the breath, just still, and becoming familiar with the beauty of the guide of that place is it responds to frequency, not intensity. So you can water a tree 20 times a day. It's still going to take a season to grow. So fortunately, healing work, real transformative, lasting growth that most of us rush, even when we feel like we're slowing it down, it doesn't take a lot each day. It's the frequency of it versus the intensity of it. And takes some reverse engineering for some of us who, in our linear destination-based mentality, it's like running a race. It's going to hurt to push really hard right now, but it's going to be worth it because I'll get there sooner. That doesn't exist in the journey of you. There's no time trials. There's no world record paces. There's presence and stillness and alignment. And the rest is experimentation and dinking around. And of course, the ironic counterintuitive elements. For example, I've never met someone who has had a realization at some level of their progression that they were enough, who shortly before wasn't trying to be too much. So you could almost argue that's part of the process too, is to overstep so that you know where the understep is, so that you can play in the proximity of the flow of you, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes total sense. And there's so many people I know that needed to hear your story, because there's so many people who are sitting in what externally looks like a great life, but inside they're feeling that water blast in their face, and needed to hear that it is possible to move through that, to get really honest with yourself and to do the healing. And maybe it's less doing the healing and maybe it's being and finding that stillness. I think that that's a really powerful message because there's just so many different modalities of healing. There's so much breath work. There's so much meditation. And I always say, if you're doing something just to do it, it's not going to work. If you're just doing something to check it off a list that I meditated today, but in the meditation, you are anywhere but there, that it wasn't part of it. And so it's about finding what stillness, what tool, if you need a tool, resonates most with you and finding that frequency. And I think that's a really important piece, is that healing doesn't have an endpoint. We talked about that. So we're coming full circle here, but healing doesn't have an endpoint. So how do we know? And I think it is that frequency. And when we're talking frequency, for anybody who's unfamiliar with that term, what we're talking about is your mood. How are you in your day? How are you existing in your relationships, in your life? If we're thinking about, these hunters and gatherers, and we're thinking about what were they doing in the meantime, it's being present in your world, being present in your life, slowing down enough to enjoy it, to really truly connect with other people and to see the spark of light in them in the way that we, hope to see it in ourselves. I think this message is something a lot of people need to hear. And I'm really grateful you were willing to share your story, because I know that can be, when you're still going through it. Another thing I'll just add on to that is that even through the canyons that I've been through, as I approach a different level of me, I find more. I find more. I find more things that I feel doubtful about. And then I have to go back and say, okay, wait, thought we did that one already. And so it's okay to have those feelings pop up too. It's okay to have the doubts or insecurities pop up as you feel like you've conquered one. There may be something else, and it doesn't mean you're broken, and it doesn't mean that you are going to be on this never ending, well, in some ways, never ending journey, but that those moments are good to know, to hold space for, and to recognize, so that you can love on them and you can take time and space within yourself for them.
Absolutely. 100%. That is when we have fallen more in love with the process than the destination. But it's not, we've eliminated destination thinking or linear. Like we want to dance with both. Yeah, what's next? And oh shit, what's next? like that's really important to feel both, because transformation can only occur in a non-dual environment. The application of that transformation can be applied in the dualistic environment of right, wrong, good, bad, yes, no, black and white that so much of the world operates in. But the actual healing, the actual advancement, the expansion of you occurs in a non-dual place and can come down, for me, it comes down to a really simple key. And that is, if you want to feel better, I've never met anyone who didn't want to feel better in some way, shape, or form. You will want to get better at feeling. If you want to feel better, get better at feeling all the parts of you to fulfill your current human experience in its waves and layers and pieces, and then you get more of it, and then you feel through all of that, and then you get more of it. And at some point, a switch flips where you don't stop going through the cycles of like, oh, this is so hard, or oh, when does it end? Because then you fully embrace those, so you can fully embrace the sunrises and the beauty of those days. But getting the opportunity to realize, wow, feeling capable is way better than feeling victorious, because feeling victorious is based on a punishment reward system. Feeling capable is based on an infinite, expansive perspective. Like, I've got the tools to go through whatever comes. I may be afraid of what comes. I may resist what comes. I'm not looking for a place of perfection and invincibility, but in capability, agility, and presence in doing that. And I don't know anyone that's ever become immune to the resistance that's still there. That's part of the dance. That's part of the titration of this process. And I used to listen to people like how you and I are talking now and be like, that's so utopian, that's so blah. And now that I'm here, wow, it's more challenging to live here, which is why it's more rewarding. I remember a meme that I saw during COVID that just was tattooed in my brain. It had a picture of a lion in a zoo and a lion in the savannah. And it said, one of these knows where his meals are coming from every day, knows where he's going to sleep, never has to worry about his safety. And the other one is free. And I was like, oh, whoa.
I've been shot.
Right. And so just realizing that this is not about some utopian pure living. This is about a expansion that allows what may be some of the toughest things for people to realize. The things you don't like about yourself never go away. They don't. You understand them better and or make more room for them. Some dirt put in your coffee is going to be more noticeable than some dirt put in a giant swimming pool. And so as we expand, the things we don't like about ourselves, actually, we didn't like them about ourselves because of the framework we were put into in this society. You know, it's going back to one of the oldest biblical questions ever asked. Who told you were naked? Like, why did we lose touch with like anything we feel about ourselves? Can we step back and go, who told us that was the case? You know, one of the biggest ones that I see people run into today is, why do I get in my own way? That is one of my favorite ones with clients, to say, who told you you were? Like, what framework, what stories decided that you needed to be in your way to justify what you're experiencing right now? Why can't it just be something for you to explore? Why does it have to be antithetical? Why does it have to have a protagonist and antagonist thing? Because that's a reward punishment system that gets us these little victories but keeps us trapped in this hamster wheel versus being able to expand beyond that. So I feel like I have a tendency to go way out there, but hopefully that's because I know you've got a lot of people listening, and I want to hopefully get one thing to a couple of those people.
There has been so many nuggets of wisdom in this. And I think that is a little bit of a downfall, not with social media, or maybe with social media, but it is a little bit of a downfall right now that people are seeing themselves in symptoms of other people's disarray. And they want that label and they want that diagnosis and they want all of these things and reasonings. And I think it's good sometimes to have that feeling of, oh, this explains it. But then I think there's a prison system that can come with that. Oh, this explains it. And now I'm victim to it. And I just feel like you hit so many nails on the head for people listening. Is there any final thoughts that you have that you want to share or you feel called to share?
I think it's something that came up from what you just said. Feels incredibly important to share. I've found in my work over the last 15 plus years with tens of thousands of people I've had the privilege of getting to work with, that explanation is one of the most common substitutes for real growth and healing.
Yep.
Because explanation tunes into that pharmacy in the brain and releases some dopamine, releases some different chemicals. So we feel like we've grown. We feel like we've figured it out. We haven't. We've just medicated. And when I found out that real transformation, real healing often has no explanation in the thinker brain, in the thinker mind, that there are times you'll go into your deeper systems, like I do with clients, that you'll be working through the actual atomic energy that's in there and allowing for discharge and release, that memories will pop up that, oh, I know what that was. There are times that happens, but that's not a requisite to healing. That's just a coincidence that occurs naturally. Some of the biggest stuff that I've worked through, I have no explanation for. I have evidence of the expansion I've experienced. I have evidence of the capacity that it's created that oftentimes gets substantiated in retrospect. But I remember a mentor of mine once saying, hey, what's the opposite of results? And I was like, I don't know. She said, reasons. And I don't want to make an enemy out of explanation and reasons. I think they are a step forward with the thinker brain. We'll want to use what we're currently addicted to get as close to the boundary as possible. Then eventually we're going to need to jump into foreign territory. But we don't want to make an enemy out of it either, because it's a part of the whole system. But just for anyone listening, pay attention to how enmeshed in the explanations of your life you are. And understand that freedom is when it's not that we can't reference them, it's that we don't need them as much. There isn't as much of a, what can be difficult to identify, a desperation for the explanation. And that's what you were talking about. We get pissed when people label us, but we crave to be labeled so that we can explain. And that gives us a pharmaceutical reprieve. You stand up too fast after laying down and you get super lightheaded and you can go, oh, I stood up too fast. You immediately feel relief. Yeah. Oh, I can explain that. You're out walking your dog though, and suddenly you get lightheaded. It's scarier because you don't know why. why? And so in those simple instances, we get addicted to the explanation is the healing. No, the explanation gives relief, but relief is not healing. Relief is not peace. One of the biggest ways you know the difference between whether you're in relief or in peace is not passive. Relief, you don't want to do anything because you're recovering. Peace, you are connected. You can't help but do things and create things because you're in flow and you're in connection. Both are important to have. Our ability to dissociate, find reprieve and relief, such an amazing part. They're like water stations on a marathon. Like, it's so important to be able to do that. And let's be careful to not assume that that is peace, that that is creation, that that is connection. It's part of the process. It's part of the experience, but it's not the underlying element that we're wanting to tune into, not permanently. I don't think in our human existence we get to do that in any type of permanence, but that we get to tune in a little bit more often, stay there just a little bit longer, and celebrate that when we get knocked out of it, we know how to get back patiently.
I think this is one of the most powerful podcasts they've ever had the pleasure of recording. And I am so grateful for you. I know that this will speak to the right people and that they will really hear that message. And I know they're going to want to work with you. So how can people best connect with you? Of course, I will drop every link in the show notes, but what is the best way to work with you or connect with you?
The easiest thing would just be to go to wholebodymindset.com and either click on one of the links that can get you in touch with me or email me. The contact information is at the bottom of the website. Or another thing I would recommend is to go to wholebodymindset.com/habit finder. That's the company that I had been a part of for almost 10 years. And I still use the technology, which is the habit finder assessment. It's not a label. It's not a personality test. It's like human design, but for how your brain has been wired to process the internal and external aspects of your life. So we can see the mapping of when you are faced with something internally or you're faced something with externally. Here are the influences, not the determinants, but the influences of how your neural pathways are wired. So we can GPS the thinker brain to get access to the heart and the gut brain. Those are two amazing places. But Nichole, if I could add on the end of that, I've done a lot of podcasts and I've done like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I spent time doing that. Mediocre to amazing. And I'll tell you, as someone who has done a lot of them, that the biggest influence for me is who I'm talking with and the space they hold and the energy they bring. I just want to come and dance with that. So as amazing as this has been, and I'm sitting here feeling something similar, it doesn't feel like it was because of me. It feels like I got to step into your playground and you have some incredible energy. You have amazing presence and questions and dialogue that I just got to I got to play with. So any outcome of this podcast was a mutual participation to allow whatever it was, because I didn't know what I was going to say today, so I can't take any credit for it. Well, I'll take some. That's probably far too altruistic of me. I'll take some. But I do want to acknowledge that I've found one of the biggest determining factors is the host. The intention you bring to this, the energy you bring to this, that is really what will throttle or enhance the conversation that gets to happen here. So I'm honored that I got to come spread my wings on your playground because it's been really fun.
It's been the best. And I'm so grateful for you. Make sure you guys check out Paul, all of his information. Make sure you follow his TikTok, his Instagram. I'll have everything in the show notes. And thank you so deeply. This has been amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to get a copy of my latest book, Rock Your Comeback, The Down-to-Earth Guide to Reclaiming Your Power, just about everywhere books are sold. Join the Comeback Club for exclusive access, masterclasses, and more. And I always love to know what you think, so make sure to shoot me a DM or leave me a review. Thanks for listening to the Rock Your Comeback podcast. I hope you're feeling inspired, motivated, and ready to take on the world. Now go step back into your power. The world's been waiting for you. But first, if you could, leave me a review or share with a friend. Thank you.